And a good evening to you, Daryl. I'm sure you're seeing this first. This is just a little bit of leader, so you can start your actual recording just after this point in the presentation. I'm bringing up on my screen the slate for leadership in times of disaster. This presentation will begin shortly. So you can begin running it just after this, and I'll let it run. I'll let this run for about 1 minute. And a good evening to everybody who's joining us tonight. Tonight's presentation, Leadership in Times of Disaster. It will begin shortly. And I want to say good evening to everyone in our South Robertson area, our Pico Robertson area, I should say, who are joining us tonight. And it's going to be good to see you and good to talk with you over the course of this evening. Stand by, everybody, and we will begin shortly. And a good evening to everybody. It's good to see you for the second session in the Advanced South Robertson NTP sessions. I want to thank everybody who's joining us tonight for this particular session. And excuse me. And I want to say it's good to see everybody again. I am not able to be with you tonight because I am actually performing another NTP function about 12 minutes east of you in the Arlington Heights area. We are doing an NTP session, which has been going on for this is our third month in a row doing this. And I am actually there talking about search and rescue tonight. Exciting. So I decided to make myself available in two locations. So here I am, folks, and it's good to see everybody, like I said. So we're going to get started here. And I want to take some time and recognize a few things. First of all, let's give a big shout out to Daryl Benvenuto, who's with you tonight, who has been putting on these sessions and really working with the group after we did our first set of sessions at the community shul. So let's give him a big round of applause on that. Let's give him a big hand clap over there for the work he does. He set up the audio visual systems. He worked with the group over there, including Bela and Jonah. Big shout out to them. And we want to make sure that everybody who's responsible for putting this together is recognized. And we also want to thank Happy Minion, who hosted us last week when we did our first session on basic personal preparedness. So, with that being said, I want to say good evening to everybody, and most of you guys should know me, but we're going to get into the presentation so we can start talking about some great things. Again, tonight's session is about leadership in times of a disaster, and that's a really good subject to explore because, as you're going to find out, each and every one of us will sometimes be called, reluctantly or not, to lead some kind of action, which may save lives, and that's a good thing. So, give me a moment, and I'm going to bring up on my screen the presentation, and I'm going to make it full screen for everybody so we can see this. And again, it is entitled Leadership in Times of Disaster. And again, a wonderful subject. This presentation is now underway, so we'll move down. And I decided to build this particular presentation in the manner of the top 10 things everyone needs to know and do for success when it comes to leadership in times of disaster. And quite honestly, what I'm going to tell you is really applicable in many other situations that occur within our community. So, as I said last week when we were at Happy Minion, don't think in just terms of one thing like a disaster or an earthquake or something like that. How can it benefit you in times of civil unrest? How can it benefit you in times of a major power outage or a disaster happening within another disaster, like um, power outage during extreme heat? You got to think in terms of those things and not think that everything is one dimensional. So let's move on. Introductions. You all know who I am, but for those of you who don't, my name is Chin Thomasangsi, and I am a member of the Los Angeles Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. I am also one of the directors of the Neighborhood Team Program. As you can see here on this particular screen, as I said, I've been a CERT member for about 10 years now, and I really enjoy it. I never knew that the Community Emergency Response Team program could be as much as what it's become in my life over the last 10 years. I thought it was nothing more than disaster preparation and trying to figure out how to get ready for an earthquake. It became far more than that. It became a whole lifestyle and something that I'm really passionate about. I'm a native of Los Angeles. I was born here, and I live about 7 minutes east of you folks over in the Mid City area. And I have lived in Mid City all my life, all my 54 years, which is reflected down there. For 33 years, I have worked in the local television and film industry. In fact, I graduated from California State University at Los Angeles with a degree in film and radio broadcasting, film, television, and radio. But for 33 years, I have worked in the industry at mostly at majority of it at CBS television network. Locally, that's KCBS TV Channel 2 and KCAL Channel 9. I've been there for 33 years. So that's also a career that came into my life, which I never knew I'd be at one location, one company for so long. But if I'm if you can kind of figure it out, I'm nothing if not consistent in the way I live my life. And 10 years, I have had 10 years with the Mid City Neighborhood Council as their public safety liaison. I originated that role. I have left the role, but actually I'm trying to be wooed back into the role by the neighborhood council. So we'll see how that goes and see if I come back to that. And if anyone is interested in reaching out to me at any time, after this, for whatever reason, my contact information is below. My email is cert68chin@gmail.com. So that's all about me. Let's start getting into the meat and potatoes of this entire presentation. Last week, when we started the advanced sessions, we talked about basic personal preparedness. And one of the facts that our Patrick Botts Forbes brought up to us right at the top was that 95% of survivors of a disaster are rescued by other survivors. I want to go over that again very quickly and say, and I want to hammer it home that the people who come to save you for the most part are the people in and around your community, in your neighborhood, living next door, walking up the street. It's in generally those minutes and hours after a major disaster like an earthquake. It's not really uniformed professional responders. They are out and around. And remember, after a major disaster, those professional responders have to change their plan up. As we said last time, the Los Angeles City Fire Department at this very moment has a little less than 1,000 firefighters in each of their 106 fire stations, which cover the Los Angeles City area. And we have, at like right about this time of evening, 4 million people in the city. So you got to do the math on that and say that they're going to be spread pretty thin. And it's really going to be up to people like you and me to step it up and rescue our neighbors and make sure our community is safe during that period of time when our professional responders are not available. But the most important part I want you to take from this is that it will be the regular person, the man, woman, who are out front, who are making a difference in the community. In this photograph, you see from our Grayburn exercise, which we do every year over in Leimert Park. This is a group of regular people doing extraordinary things. In this case, they are practicing carrying a patient from a rescue site back to the medical area at staging that we have set up. And here's another view of that particular action from the back. It's pretty impressive seeing regular people like you and me. And remember, we're all volunteers here, or we're all regular community members. We have to step up and we have to fill those roles sometimes when our professional responders can't. And that's why programs like CERT and the neighborhood team program were created. So what does that mean for the average citizen? I think I just said that, but I will say it again. You will be put in a position where you have to act for the greater good. And I say that because we as human beings, and this was told last week in Patrick's presentation, that the CERT program in particular grew out of people wanting to do good things for other people, for their fellow human beings. In Mexico City, just to tell that story very quickly, um, a group of men had gotten out of a series of buildings in downtown Mexico City. They were free and clear. They were scot free. They could whoop it up and enjoy themselves in the park while waiting for help. Well, they did the right thing. They heard that people in other buildings were in distress and needed to be rescued. And those gentlemen, they did what every one of us should do. They got together and they said, "We're going to help try to get those people out," because down in Mexico City, of course, emergency services, like they are everywhere, were not available at the time. Their only miscalculation was that they banded up and went into a series of buildings that were weakened by the initial quake, and they were in there when an aftershock took place. They, along with the people they were intending to rescue, were killed. And that's something that we don't want to ever see happen. And that was the reason for the creation of the Community Emergency Response Team program. So it was to help us have the knowledge and the skills and the wherewithal to understand when it is not safe for us to go into a bad situation. Again, we always say we don't want to bring victims to an incident. So that's just a little bit of a backstory on that one. But all of us, at one point or another, will be put in a position where we have to act. And every day in our normal lives, we see that where people see a car crash that has just taken place on the freeway, and whether they thought they could do it or not, they find themselves running over, pulling somebody out of that car before it explodes. Or somebody's driving down the street and they see a house on fire and they pull their car over, run up, and find themselves crawling in there to get somebody out of a fire where they would have died. Humans are humans are capable of incredible acts of compassion, and that's what I want to focus on. We are, as a species, we are capable of incredible horrors. And there are many of those horrors littering our history, but we are capable of incredible acts of heroism and compassion. And most of those people will tell you they weren't looking for it. They might have even been what I like to recall reluctant leaders, but something in them got them going. And one of my favorite folks. You guys should know, if you don't already know, I'm a massive science fiction fan. Anybody who reads my CERT newsletter knows that because there's a science fiction tinge in there every month. The late great Rod Serling. And I want to take a line from him, and I'm going to lead into another great person. Consider, if you will. And this is the late Vince Lombardi, who football fans will know everywhere. He had a little saying that I thought was appropriate here tonight. Leaders aren't born, they are made, and they are made just like anything else through hard work. And I'm going to add on to Vince Lombardi's quote and say, in addition to hard work, sometimes it's the circumstances we find ourselves in that make us step up and be leaders, even if we didn't think we could do it. And again, even if we are reluctant leaders. And let's take a look at a couple of images as we get into all of this. These are images of a serious earthquake and its aftermath. This is from the 1994 Northridge earthquake. The photographer of these photographs is yours truly. This picture on the left comes from the West Adams area, which is 2 minutes away from where I live. I know exactly where it is. It's at the corner of West Boulevard and West Adams. That was that morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning. I remember even when I took these pictures. I was 30 years younger then. We lost a building in West Adams. We lost several buildings along West Adams, and then just heading up east from that is a photograph of the 10 freeway. There are a million different angles of this particular view of the 10 freeway, but that is the 10 freeway at La Cienega Boulevard. And if you remember, we lost that freeway, and on that day of the Northridge earthquake, we lost several lives, including a police officer who was on his way to work, Clarence Dean, who rode right off of an interchange of the 118 freeway, or of the 18 freeway, or the 14 freeway. I can't remember. It's a freeway that came in from Simi Valley. So it was a very tragic day. But that was one of our last serious earthquakes to hit the Los Angeles area. And guess what? As Patrick said last time, we are long overdue for another earthquake. But also at the same time, think of other disasters which could and have befallen us. COVID-19 was a disaster. You may not think it was, but it was. It was a disaster and it was responded to in that manner. Massive electrical outages, intense heat, floods, fires, things like that. Some of the stuff we're going through today. So keep that in mind. And the big question is, what will you do? What will you do? These are some examples from a an earthquake disaster exercise we did around about 9 years ago. It was one of the first operations I was a part of as a young CERT member, and this is what people look like after a situation like that. They have injuries to the head, they have injuries to the body, they have other serious injuries. The question is when we start seeing those people walking up and down our streets, what will we do? And that kind of leads us into the meat of our presentation tonight. I did a lot of setup for it to get you guys, kind of into this and just seeing how things are going. But this is it. The Neighborhood Team Program tonight presents Leadership in Times of Disaster. And I decided to make this a top 10 list of the top 10 things everyone needs to know for success. These are tips and things that will benefit the person who probably thinks they're not a leader and can never be a leader, or the reluctant leader. Guess what? In each of us, there is the ability to be effective, compassionate, and competent leaders. And tonight I am actually going to channel in, my inner David Letterman. And it was actually between David Letterman and Casey Kasem, two really prolific people who we know. And since I worked at CBS for 33 years and Letterman worked at CBS, had a show, I figured it would probably be only appropriate to channel my inner David Letterman. So, starting out at number 10, this is the top 10 of things you need to know to be effective in a disaster. Very basic stuff, folks. And the preparation starts before a disaster happens. We talk about that all the time. At number 10 on the list is be engaged with your community in all aspects of it. And one of the things I like about the Pico Robertson community is that I know you guys are very engaged in community, family, faith, and everything like that. So you've got that here in the Pico Robertson community. But be engaged with the community in all aspects of it. I chose this picture, which is from a block from our last block party in October in my neighborhood. You're seeing my neighborhood. So in this picture, you've got, of course, all of our neighbors. We are connected. Some of these neighbors I grew up with or grew up under. Actually, I grew up with some of their kids, and we now are homeowners on the street, and some of those neighbors who were parents at the time are still there with us. We've got our neighbors. That's the key, the nucleus that we're going to have to reach out to in times of a disaster. Other people in this picture include our LA City Fire Department, who can be kind of seen peeking up here and there. You look hard, you see their little badges. They're part of our community. Through my work with CERT, I know who these people are and I know what their capabilities are. We also have up front the city council person, Heather Hutt, the current city council person. She is there. We are connected with her office. Next to her, actually, one person over is her deputy, Danielle Marrow of Council District 10. We connect with them as well. We have several of our local faith leaders with us, and it's just an incredible coming together of the community, and that's the way it should be. When I say be connected to your community and be engaged, I mean in every aspect of it. Know every aspect of it. In Pico Robertson, you guys have actually a little bit more to work with. You guys have a great security force in the Shmira who is there in your community. I'm going to assume, rightly or wrongly, you guys are very connected with that. But if in the weird case you're not, get connected with them, because like us as CERT people, they're volunteers, but they're key volunteers in your community. They are professional volunteers. The Shmira is one. Hatzalah is another. Um, I've always been fascinated by that. That was one of the first things I learned when I was looking at South Pico Robertson many years ago. Just how amazing that is. Those folks will be out during a disaster doing their thing, which they do so well. And I know you've got Megan on, who is now in the area doing various security. Get to know them as well. If you don't already know them, but you guys have the ability to have a lot of great backup and a lot of support. So at number 10, before a disaster, be engaged with all aspects of your community. At number 9, we are saying connect with your neighbors, all of them. And the reason why I say that is because in a lot of our communities, there is some engagement here and there, but sometimes we tend to leave out other people. Like if we're a single family dwelling type community, we will leave out people who live in the nearby apartments because we don't think about them. And sometimes they don't think about us, and sometimes they don't feel like they can reach out because they're just renters in the neighborhood. That is not a mindset I have ever subscribed to in my own community. For the first 14 years of my life of living in my community of Mid City on Lafayette, my parents were renters there. They were renters for like 14 years. And I will tell you, they were very involved in the community. They were involved in the neighborhood groups and everything like that. This was, of course, a different time when we had people who literally would rent an apartment and they'd live and die in that apartment. They had lived in there so long. We don't have that a lot now, and we have a changing attitude. But we have to change that. So connect with all of your neighbors when you can. And one more thing you should do is when you have newer people moving into the neighborhoods, and we see a lot of that now, and newer, younger people and everything like that. Reach out to those neighbors if you can. Um, Reach out and say hi, introduce yourself. If you're even luckier, feel free to have a little group go by and say, hey, we want to welcome you to the neighborhood, and we want to tell you about our neighborhood and talk about community neighborhood watch, talk about disaster preparedness, talk about what you've got going in your neighborhood, what kind of block parties you have, or whatever it is. Sometimes your new neighbors, they don't know how to reach out. And we've got a whole younger generation. And if I'm offending anybody who's younger, you can come and find me later and beat me up or whatever it is. Not that you would do that. But younger folks now, with all of the Zooms, all of the wired devices, the way we work from home. People don't get out and interact as much anymore. So the art of personal interaction is a little bit on the slide, but reach out to all of those people, welcome them, and do your best on a continuing basis to reach out to them. That's key. That's number 9 on the top 10 list of things you need to know. And again, this is all before the disaster is happening. By the way, this photograph comes from a neighborhood cleanup we did some time ago, and I'm involved in all of that as well. It's most of you guys know me as the CERT guy. I do other things as part of my community as well. Number 8 on the list, develop a plan. Develop a plan. Once you've reached out and once you've become engaged in your community and reached out to your neighbors, find those who want to get together and make a plan. And this plan, it may be a disaster plan, but this is an all periods plan. It could be for if there's a major police action in the neighborhood, if there's some other issue that is taking place. You guys will have a chance to know who your neighbors are, have their contacts, be able to reach out to them. Maybe if you're real creative, you might reach out to them via the radio or something like that, the handheld radio. Um, you just really need to have a plan. Plans are exactly what the word means. You're planning for something in the future. As there's an old saying that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And that's going to be true in a lot of our communities. I hate to say that, but that's just the truth. So create a plan. The images you see here are from a session I was a part of in Baldwin Hills several years ago. This is the Los Angeles Emergency Management Department, and those two people over there, you got one with her back to you, says EMD, and the one facing you. Those are good friends of mine, John Brown and Jillian DeVella of the LA EMD, the Emergency Management Department, which can be a real help in your community putting a plan together. If you've never done it, this is the perfect way to go. And we're still pushing that stuff through. I still work with EMD, and I still get out to all of these kind of plan development sessions. And the communities that develop them are really great. At the top of this, I showed you pictures from the Grayburn area exercise in Leimert Park. That's how that sprung. They started out by doing a plan called Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood, which is through the LAEMD. And every year, and it's just grown bigger and bigger and bigger, we practice that plan every year, and they update that plan every year. So, yes, you got to have a plan of attack here. And number 7, this is key. Once you've developed a plan, you got to know what it's all about. I mean, everybody I see out here right now and that I'm pointing at right now, and I know pointing is not proper, but you get what I'm saying. Each and every one of you sitting in this audience tonight needs to know that area plan, whatever plan that is, and you need to know it. A lot of you are saying, well, I'm just going to come help out and everything like that. I'm going to lay it on you. Um, The people who are probably setting up a lot of this stuff, you got Daryl who's sitting over there, and you got Bela who's over there, and you got Jonah who's over there, and and you got even me who's up here on the screen. We may not be around to help you. We may not be around to help you. And it may take even the most junior member of your community to get that plan rolling and in motion. And every one of you should know what that plan is. Even if other people planned it, get a copy of that plan, study it. Just know it. Have it someplace where you can reach for it, because you'll never know on that morning when it shakes or something like that. You're walking to the place where you're going to gather with your friends and neighbors, and guess what? You find out you're the only one there. But people are coming. But guess what? Because you're the first one there, everybody considers you the leader. And we do insert as well. Whatever member makes it to the staging area, or as we call it, that person is the guy in command until somebody else comes to take command from that person, if that person wants to get out of that role. So, every one of you, I can't say this enough. That's why I'm saying it 4 times. You need to know the plan and how to implement it, especially if other leaders are not around. And that image, by the way, is from one of our CERT call out operations that I manage. It was a major street. It was a major street event, and I had a couple. I briefed my members on the plan, and they're implementing it. I'm not implementing it; they are. I'm just hanging out for the day. So it could be incumbent on any of you to make these plans happen. Okay, we're out of the before portion, out of the before the disaster has happened. Now we're in the part where the disaster has happened. And I will tell you, if you're doing any one of, items 10 through 7, the morning of your disaster, you are out of luck. Sorry. Thank you for playing. Womp womp. The whole thing. If you haven't done any of that stuff leading up to this day, you are in massive trouble. So, but let's say you are that community that has done that. After the disaster has taken place, be ready to assume leadership. I talked about that, right? You might be that first person who arrives at that staging area, and everybody's looking to you to make things happen. Your neighbors are running around with their hair on fire because they don't know. One of the biggest things you can bring to a staging area or any place else, or if you're just standing in your community, is a sense of confidence. And a sense of confidence comes from doing items 10 through 7. That'll give you at least some confidence. Even if you're not completely schooled in how things work, you'll at least have a framework to start to work from. And once you have that confidence and you can get your people together, they will read you and feel that confidence come from you. It's not arrogance. It's not arrogance, because don't get it mixed up. You might get a lot of people who show up at these staging areas bloviating, saying, "Hey, it's like I'm ready. It's like, I got these credentials and all that kind of stuff, and I'm ready to lead you." I gotta tell you, I'm always suspect of people who do that, because, like anything else, if you're good at what you do, you really don't have to tell the world that you're good at what you do. You just sort of do it. You sort of slide into that role and just say, "Hey, let's get going here." So, I'm not saying that anybody here who has that kind of great self image of themselves is not competent. But again, I just don't think you need to be in a place where you need to let the world know, "I am fantastic. I am great." Because it has been my experience and my observation that people who do that are usually not very good at what they do. And I have encountered it concretely several times in my life in CERT. So, like I said, after the disaster, be ready to assume leadership. And part of being a good leader, too, you can acknowledge your team. You can acknowledge to the people who are with you, "Hey, I got the same jitters going on here. It's like I'm shaken up. My life is shaken up, but you know what? Everything's good at home with my family. I'm good. I've checked on my closest neighbors and I'm here. Let's get this thing started. It's like we're going to get started together and we're going to work through this. That's going to put your team at ease, knowing that you understand where they're coming from and knowing that you are in it with them. Again, guys who bloviate and say I'm the greatest and all that kind of stuff, that's not inspirational. It's like let them know what you're really feeling. That's at least what I say. And that is an image from our gray burn exercise. And all the people here you see are not these heavily uniformed certs like myself and Patrick and everything who do this a lot. These are area neighborhood team members. And if I remember correctly, some of these guys might not even be CERT. We may have just used those CERT vests to just identify everybody because our drills are open to everybody in the community. So these people, a lot of these people may be first timers. The ones you're looking at, gentleman with the gray beard right here, and this guy hiding way over here, those are CERT leaders and everything like that. They are CERT people. Number five, number five on the list. Surround yourself with people who have skills equal or better to your own. Get their thoughts and opinions. What I will say is, if you have somebody who has skills equal to you, you can kind of consider letting leadership go if you want to. But if you're going to stay in it for a while and you're comfortable with that, um, have that team around you that really helps you out. Now, there's a little trap you can walk into, which we'll talk about in item number 4 on the top 10 list. But I will say right now, surround yourself with people who have skills equal or better to yours. For me, and I think we talked about it last week. Patrick said he's like, we're not going to have the advantage of having Patrick, Chin, Daryl, Bela, Jonah, and name anybody else. We may not have that ability to have all of us standing right next to each other. That would be a dream team, but the reality is it'll be you and your closest neighbors. So surround yourself with people who have skills equal or better to yours, but also in saying this, even among your untrained neighbors, like I said, get to know that group, get to know the group in your community. If you've got doctors, you've got the makings of a medical team. And even if you have in that medical area, if you have a veterinarian, a dental assistant, or something like that, those people can count as medical personnel. They may work on, like the veterinarian works on a whole different level, but they have a basic knowledge of anatomy and physiology and some other things. Um, Take advantage of that. If you have a person who's in construction or the trades, those people are great. And in fact, when we talk about that Ryland program, the Radio Los Angeles Neighborhood Program that we talked about, that's what you list in the program. Regular people with regular skills. If you've got somebody who lives up the street with a Ford Ranger truck, guess what? That's a resource for you. You might be using that to truck people to the hospital nearby if they're heavily injured. Think about those things. Again, when you surround yourself with the people you need, doesn't have to always be people in the green uniforms or anything. And really, that's what we're saying. Um, we're saying overall too. That's if you're working. That's definitely when you're working outside of having responders like us and everything like that around, responders, leaders, and all that kind of stuff. There you go. Get their thoughts and opinions if you need it. Number 4 on the top 10 list of things you need to know is part 2 of number 5. Make a decision and live with it. A lot of times, the trap that we get into with surrounding ourselves with people who are very good and have great skills and everything is now you're inundated with a dozen opinions. If there's 6 people there, they've got 6 opinions, and Sometimes you can get very caught up in trying to listen to everybody and trying to have a democratic discussion. In times of disasters like this, you have a very finite period of time to make a decision on an operation, and you have to just make that decision and live with it, because remember, every second you waste, what you don't see up the road is somebody's life can be very much draining out as you guys are sitting there trying to figure out who's doing what, why, what method, and everything like that. And I'll tell you, recently at one of our neighborhood team program exercises in the valley, we had a young lady, very, very good. She's CERT trained and everything, but her leadership skills need work because she got out. We gave her a disaster situation, and she was supposed to lead her team into the building. Stood out there for 15 minutes just trying to hear everybody's opinion and trying to evaluate and trying to say, well, what do you think? And you can't do that to a certain degree. You have to hear the opinions quick. You have to make a decision, sometimes an autocratic decision, and you have to live with it. Understand that, you know, every decision you make is, a life could hinge on the back of it. But guess what? You're doing the best you can, folks. You don't do search and rescue and first response every day. I don't either. I do it a little bit more than you guys do, but I don't do it every day either. So I'm not going to put myself on a higher pedestal, but you have to make a decision and go with it. You can't sit there overthinking it, because you can get caught in a situation where you're just paralyzed because you have too many options or you're too scared to make a decision. You can't do it. You got to make a decision and live with it. And this is an image from one of our area street events where I'm giving the guys the game plan, and I made the decision and I'm living with it. It worked out that day. Yay. Number three, make sure the folks who are working with you are safe at all times. All of them. On the left side of your screen, you're looking at a flow chart and what we call incident command system grid of people that we have out in this neighborhood. This particular exercise took place in West Adams back in 2016. So it's almost 10 years ago. It was one of the first large exercises I was a part of. And I got to tell you, at that time, as being a young CERT, I was like everybody else. I said, "Oh God, I don't know anything. I can't add anything to this. If they called me to do something, I couldn't do it. Oh my goodness." Um, I guess God is good out there. He kept every time I would come to these, somebody would call me into some kind of leadership position or something like that, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm just going to screw this up." It's natural to feel that way. It really is. And if you stop feeling that way, then you started to graduate into that overconfident bunch I talked about earlier. There's always going to be a little bit of um, dread or a little bit of reticence in doing these things, because you do want to do the right thing. So, but it got me into it, and it got me more comfortable with things, and I've been doing it ever since, as you probably have seen in some of the photographs. But this chart is designed to keep an eye on who's doing what at our operations. Where are they? What are they doing? And we can reach out via communications, via the radio, which I'm holding up in front of my face right here, and we can find out how people are doing out there. We want to make sure that our people who we have sent out to check on the community are safe. We want them to come home. Again, that's what CERT is all about. But at the same time, before you even get into all of this, um, in your community, as I have said in past presentations, um, make sure that you check on your immediate neighbors. Make sure they're okay. Make sure they're okay in addition to your own family. In fact, make your neighbors actually, for a disaster, make them family. Hit the neighbor on this side of you and this side of you and in the front. That is the best way. If you've got that little network going, everybody's going to be fine. And keep that in mind. Number 3 on the top 10 list, and this is critical, know when to give up that leadership. We kind of talked about it a few slides ago when we were talking about having people around us with equal or better experience. Um, at any time, if you are a leader and you are feeling overwhelmed in the role you've gotten, you can hand it off, provided there is somebody who is competent to take that role. Don't just get so rattled that the first person who walks, I'll do it. Um, don't hand it off. Make sure, again, this is why you get to know your community. Know who's qualified for that role. If somebody in a green uniform shows up, chances are it's pretty good. Even though I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes our members are suspect as well. Some of them think they know more than they do. But in most cases, if if you get somebody in that green uniform and you are lucky to see that, you know, knock it down. Feel free to like pass that off if they're willing to take it. And I will tell you that a lot of CERT people live in our community who aren't very out with their certainess. They may have taken CERT, but may have never put on that green vest and maybe collecting dust at the bottom of their closet. But know when to give it up, and that's pretty much the whole deal when you need fresh leadership. This photograph was taken also at that same exercise in 2016. I was put in a leadership role. It's like I look kind of good doing it, but I got to tell you, I was new at the time and I was feeling the jitters, but I hung in there and did it. I was lucky enough in this photograph to be able to quote unquote hand off operations, which is everything you see behind you. We have medical operations, we have search and rescue operations going on out of view, different things. In this situation, the LA City Fire Department showed up and the captain looked at me and said, "We are taking over operations. What is your status?" I was happy enough to give that captain a rundown of what was going on at that time, and you can see it written on those papers. And I handed it over to him and they took over the operation. In the case of you folks in the community, it might be just a good neighbor that is qualified who walks up and says, "Hey, do you need any help?" And you look at him and say, "Hey, can I hand this off to you to kind of lead?" And what you do is exactly what I'm doing here. You don't hand off to that neighbor and say, "Peace out, I got to go." You stay there for a few minutes and say, here's what's going on. We have 3 teams in the field. We have people door knocking. We have uh, this number of people at medical operations, et cetera, et cetera. You give them the lay of the land, and then you say, any questions? Once they've got it, formal handover of operations, let everybody else know, and you're free. And you're free. Again, know when to give up that leadership. You could give it up because you're tired, you're fatigued, you want to get back to your family and be with them. You're not comfortable in that role. It's like you just want to hold on to it just long enough so people can get organized. Just enough of the plan to make it work, but you want out. All of those are legitimate reasons to give up leadership, and it's knowing when and where to do that and how to do that. And finally, number 1 on the list, like I said, get back to your community and your family. You have done your part for your community. And maybe you'll come back tomorrow and do it because remember, these operations are going to be like multi-day operations. These are operations that are going to be like over a series of days until we start getting professional responders back into the neighborhood. So get back to your family and community and give yourself also time to recharge. The one thing I want to let you guys know is no matter what part of the operation you lead, and by the way, Leadership in these types of operations doesn't mean you're managing the whole thing. You might be on a team that's door knocking or doing search and rescue. You could be a leader in all of that. So there are different types and levels of leadership. But understand one thing too. While you're out there, you're gonna see things that you're gonna see things that you wish you'd wish that your mind could erase what your poor eyes have seen. You're going to see probably some carnage. You're going to see people in tough situations, sometimes people you know and people you love. You might even see some of those people dead. That's just a reality. Um, that's hard. That's hard on first responders. To be quite honest with you, that's hard on first responders. And you've heard different stories through the years of first responders who've been on certain types of calls and they've gone and retired and quit and became gas station attendant because they just couldn't live with that, what they had seen. So they're professional responders who are trained to see this stuff. They're probably some of them are even psychologically tested, and it's hard on them. Imagine how hard it's going to be on the citizen responder. And I will not lie to you. I will tell you, it's like seeing that's probably going to be hard on me too. Understand your limits, and get yourself out of that situation. Get home, get back to the family and everything like that. Recharge your batteries. Decide whether you want to go back and help out that next day or days to come. No one's going to fault you if you don't. And in this photograph, on the very far left is a very good family friend and neighbor of mine. I grew up with his kids, and he's still in the neighborhood. I still call him Mr. Germain, and I'm like 54. He's got 67 years in my neighborhood, by the way. I've got 54 in mine, and in the middle is my better half, Ms. Joy, who I always talk about quite honestly and quite a lot. So, yay. Um, and that's it. Really, that's kind of it. Those are the top 10 things I wanted to really talk to you about tonight. And leadership skills are, again, you know, like we said at the top, leaders aren't born, they're made. They're made through a lot of different experiences in their lives. And um in my life, the teaching thing that I really love doing, and I'm teaching tonight, I love it. When I started working for CBS back in 91 or whatever it was, I was the intern. That was when interns were very popular, were very much around in the TV and film business. They're still kind of around. It's just not not as much as it used to be. I was an intern in the CBS program, and then I got hired onto CBS into CBS, and I've been there since that time. So it's been a wonderful journey. It's been a great journey of highs and everything like that. And but strangely enough, my boss, who became one of the most influential women in my life, um, for some reason, and she was out. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" And she says, now that you're hired here and you're working here, I want you to oversee the internship program. She had started it and worked with it for a couple of years before I got there, but for some reason she thought I was fit for that. And I thought she was out of her mind. I said to myself, it's a lot different being an intern than running things and teaching. It really wasn't. It was a big old blessing to me. And for the next 27 years of my 33 years, I'd run that program. And I had so much fun helping to teach and shape minds and everything like that. I want to say, I think the last time we did like a little assessment of it, about 95% of the folks who came through the program I was part of went on into the industry. And that 5% who didn't, most of those people decided it wasn't for them. And there was actually one person who got fired. And I remember that person. And here's the irony. That person who I had to let go from that program, he and I are still friends to this day. And that was way over like 20 years ago. that happened. But um, I tell you that because even I, who does this, when I first came into CERT, I kept saying, "Are you out of your mind?" Every time they said something to me. Larry Bogatz, who we've talked about here, um, he actually, and I'm actually clearing my screen. Larry Bogatz, who you folks generally know, and we've talked about him many times. He was the CERT coordinator right there in that area, which includes South Pico Robertson. Um, you all still ask for him from time to time, and that just is a real testament to who he was. When he was leaving the position as a coordinator, he reached out to me and called me. He says, "Can you come to my home and meet with me?" And so I went over there, not really knowing what I was going over there for. And he laid it on me. He says, "I am leaving the position. I am leaving the city. I would like for you to take over the role of Battalion 18 coordinator." And by the way, Battalion 18 is where you are right now. Um, and I looked at him and I said exactly what I said to my boss many years earlier. I said, "Are you out of your mind?" I said, "There has to be at least 12 other people in this CERT Battalion 18 area who are better at this than I am." I was still relatively new then. And Larry said, yes. He said, there are people who probably in a skills set have, more refined skills. But his reasoning was that I had done some other things, you know, in the area, like developed relationships with some of our communities that he had not gotten to, like our Lamert Park community. And I had done some other things that where I took initiative, of course, under his direction of making some things happen. And he said, "That's what makes you valuable in leading." He said, "Your skills will grow in later." He said, "Your skills will grow in later." And they have. Um, but we'd be nuts to lose an opportunity to place you in this position. So I started out as Battalion 18 coordinator, and not really long after that, about a year, I became the South Bureau coordinator, where I still am today. And I'm really thankful for that. And it helped me see the leader in myself. And also for you folks, in all of this, you can bring some skills from your life, from your everyday life. The ability for me to teach here, that came from doing all of that stuff with the interns at CBS. It made me refine my skills of conveying knowledge and concepts and different things. So when it comes to reaching out to folks like you guys, it just is such a natural thing for me to do, and I enjoy it now. I've enjoyed it all of the time, but I've learned to appreciate it more. So feel free in that leadership role of yours to bring in a little bit of what you bring from your daily life. If you've run a company or you've worked in the medical industry or something like that, feel free to bring that, but know what's appropriate. Because, for example, like a CEO of a company, you can't work with volunteers or your neighbors or anything like that and start bossing them around. Can't tell them to do all that kind of stuff and just expect them to hop to it. Even if you're like a military guy, you can't even expect that. You have to temper it with knowing your audience. So there you go. I've rattled on for a little over an hour. Um, I think you guys got something out of it. Let me know. Let Daryl know, who's there with you right now, and we'll continue this discussion. Um, I will tell you in the meantime, um, I'm going to get back to the gang I have here at Gramercy Apartments, and actually, I'm already there. I'm already doing it. I'm just actually doing two teaching jobs tonight, one virtually and one live. And if I may go a little bit science fiction on you, call me the emergency CERT hologram. Any fan of Star Trek Voyager will know why I'm calling it that. So with that being said, I want to thank you again. And as I end all of my sessions, I always say, thank you for the privilege of your time. There are a million different places you could be, and a million different other things you could be doing. So, um, thank you. Thank you for giving me this time to address all of you folks, and I hope you take this to heart, and I hope you think of it more. If you want to reach out to me, obviously feel free to do so, and I am more than happy to have more discussions on this point. Daryl Benvenuto, my partner in all of this, will talk to you more as I depart. He'll have that back and forth discussion with you, and he can add some perspective that I may have left out because he is an area team leader, and he has reached out. He has reached out to each and every one of you folks. So, and he's got you here. This is a great audience we've got here. So, take advantage of him and get his perspective on some things. And I will see you again next time. And Daryl, I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder over there and just say the next time we see each other, I think will be, well, actually, I won't be there. There, you will be having a medical training taught by a gentleman by the name of Ben Skirker. He was in some of the pictures that we showed. You're in for a great time. British fellow, and he's got all that charm. He could charm the pants off of God knows what. So look forward to that. And again, I thank you, and I am going back to doing what I'm doing at the Gramercy Apartments over in Arlington Heights. Everybody have a great night, and we'll see you soon. And Daryl, it's all yours, buddy. Great job, and we will talk in the morning. Have a great night, everybody.